A lot of the time, SDRs are very afraid to just speak directly in a professional way. But that is something that I would find whenever it would happen to me. If we got ghosted, I would immediately start following up within different business units at that account, because at that account level, there's some sort of interest. Like you shouldn't just drop it if one person's like ghost you and doesn't respond, especially if it's a large enterprise account. But what I would always go after in terms of triggers at Demandbase was if they're researching something that ties directly back to our USP, directly, not high level, and if they're researching any of our competitors. Because what that tells me is an SDR or seller or anyone using the platform that's pulling that intent tells me that they know something about what it is that we do. So they're already higher level intelligent than they would be if they're just doing broad research on ABM.
All right, super excited to have on Austin Jouett, who is a full cycle account executive at Intentify Demand, a lead generation agency that uses AI and intent to get you qualified pipeline that's actually ready to buy right now. Prior to Intensify, Austin was a senior enterprise SDR at Demandbase. For those of you who don't know, Demandbase is one of the biggest players in account-based marketing and signal-based selling. There, he was awarded the top 30 under 30 global SDR by Outplay Award. He generated $1.6 million in revenue for the year that he was there, and he achieved 105% quota attainment. So today, we're going to talk about the strategies that he used and at Demandbase and how they were able to build an intent-based go-to-market engine. Austin, welcome.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate it. Let's get this thing rocking.
Let's go. So let's dive into a quick background about yourself, and then we'll go into the main topics.
Yeah, 100%. So I like to start my story like this. It's relevant. Bear with me. So yeah, Alan, you already know this, but I have been in the sales industry since I was 11. So I know it's a little weird to start saying, oh, 11-year-old sales guy. It's bullshit. It's not, and I'll tell you why. So I grew up with a family that was pretty well off for themselves. The typical American dream is I really want to provide for my family. I want to retire my mom, retire my dad, buy them a house, buy them a boat, stuff like that. I think most of us would agree that is the the typical American dream. I have the atypical to that. So they're already successful. They don't need me. I'm over here. I have to figure out what I need to do for myself. At 11, my parents started their tycoon stuff and their business entities out in Oklahoma. They started doing, specifically what it was that we started doing was Orion's Cleaning Supplies. It was a cleaning company. We'd go around, we'd clean buildings, office buildings. I remember this in like 5th grade. I was doing it until 9 o'clock at night. I was doing cleaning buildings like that were 20-story buildings, stuff like that. That's where I came from. The 11-year-old in me, whenever we were starting up that cleaning business, my dad actually gave me a product to sell. He literally would drop me off in really sketchy neighborhoods, gotta say, out in Oklahoma, Tulsa. And he would drop me off with a box of Odor Assassin is what it was called. It was an air freshener spray like Febreze or stuff like that. I could probably pitch you to this day what it was. But essentially, he would drop me off in neighborhoods and said, hey, here's a box, sell these in 2 hours and I'll be back. That is literally like the upbringing that I had. So fast forward a little bit into more of a professional career. Obviously, sales just always been my jive. Didn't really want to go to school or anything like that. So I took a backseat on school. I started focusing on sales and building up my acumen in the business world. I did door-to-door. As many of you, door-to-door is a shit show of a job for the first little bit for the majority of people. But I will say I did that for about a year and a half. I led about a team of, I think, around 25, 26 people. We were number one in the entire nation for a couple months out of the year. I can't remember what year it was now. Hell, I'm getting old. But yeah, no, that's where I got my start. I was going to open an office in Seattle. I found out that the door-to-door world was not for me and that it was a little bit more of a cult than I had wanted to accept. I did a transition. I did technical recruiting for a little bit, and then I just hated it. It was in St. Louis. It was in a really shitty office environment with frat boys, frat girls, and just wasn't my style. And I made another change, landed in software as a service tech sales, Demandbase, as Alan mentioned at the beginning. I was there for about a year and a half, sourced over 2.8 million, had 1.6 close roughly. I think those numbers should be correct. And and since then I've moved on to Intentify Demand, as he mentioned, and where I'm a full cycle account executive. That is very high level, my background right now, but yeah.
It's an illustrious career in sales. And for most people graduating college, they would think that it wasn't very long, but you've been doing it since you're 11. So you've been doing it for over a decade now.
Yep. Been doing it for a while.
So what do you think transferred over from door-to-door sales over into software sales?
Active listening. And so there was something in door-to-door sales that I don't know what the term would be if you correlated it to B2B tech sales, but it was something called concrete feet. We would literally, it's just how we were trained. So you can call me a bad sales guy or whatever you want. But how we were trained is we were literally told to sit there until they slammed the door in our face. Not this 3 objection, 4 objection, 5 objection bullshit. It was literally, you are staying there at that door until they slam it in your face. The amount of times I've had a gun shoved in my face in door-to-door is more than I can count on one hand. Let's put it like that. So I think that honestly has correlated extremely well over into this industry, just coming from what I come from. Listen, here's the thing. You're telling me that I can go to B2B tech sales, do some cold calling, cold emailing, and the person on the other end is just going to do this if they don't want to talk to me? As opposed to slamming a door in my face, it just made the transition a lot easier. And it made me realize we don't have it that bad. Like it's really not that as intense as a lot of people will talk about on LinkedIn. Like SDR is super hard. I get it, but it is not as hard as coming from something as door to door. And I think that honestly has set me up for the success that I've had because of concrete feet and just really understanding when to give up, when to push. That's really what I gathered from door to door, I'd say.
It's crazy. For everyone's play, there's someone who always has it worse. And people say that going through SDR and B2B sales is like your proving ground. It's a period of your life when you have to scrap. Your period was even before that. Be able to experience gratitude for B2B SaaS sales is incredible.
Yeah, and me and my buddy had a conversation about this the other day because he came from door to door, same company that I did. And he's an account executive at a different company. We were talking and we were just chumming it up a little bit. We were like, dude, what were we doing back then? And I will say, listen, it is truly a skill set that has made the B2B world a lot easier for people like us that have just gone through stuff like that. So I would say to anyone out there that's never done the door to door or anything like that, the B2B cold calling, stuff like that, just take a step back. Listen, just the way that I always go about it is it's human level prospecting. I talk about it all the time on my LinkedIn. These people are humans, man. If it's a CEO, C-suite, director plus, whoever, treat them like a human. These people don't want to be treated like they're gods. Like they're going to see that as desperation. Just have a conversation. If they're mean to you, make a joke about it. Like it does not have to be that serious, but I just wanted to get that out there because that's something that a lot of junior SDRs are really, their mindset is the direct opposite of that. And so they just need to focus in a little bit more on what truly actually matters. But carry on.
Yeah, like your best friend. I would love to get into what it was like for you to be an SDR at Demandbase. How did you guys approach lead generation? What was the setup? What was the tooling you guys used? Yeah, let's start there.
Yeah, 100%. So the setup that we had, I'll give you like my timeline. So when I first started at Demandbase, I was more on the inbound team for a little bit while they were coming up with different segments, stuff like that. So what I did, I worked with a tool called Qualified, and then I used the ABM or account-based marketing platform that Demandbase owned and operated. So what we would do in terms of the inbound kind of generation side of the house is Qualified would kind of kick off leads to us in terms of if the account was already in Salesforce or if it was not in Salesforce, and you had a good conversation with them. Let's assume that the account was already in Salesforce. It was already being worked by your fellow peers in a fellow SDR. You would qualify them on Qualified on their little website. Basically, it's a chat bot that would come in. It's just all your website visitors that are de-anonymized. So what we'd do is we'd correlate everything. We'd find out if they're already being worked. If they are, we'd pass them along to that person. We'd ping them on Slack. We'd say, hey, we have this person on the line right now. They're asking this question, XYZ. This is your account. This is your person. Go after them. That's how we do it. We pass it along. If it was on the opposite side of that, where it was an account or a prospect that was not already being worked actively, what we'd do is the process there is we'd get them in, we'd answer their questions over the chat bot, and then if they got interested, we'd book them for a qualification call, or qual call is what we call them, as an SDR. So we were not passing those leads on to AEs or anyone above yet because they just weren't to that stage, and we don't want to waste our AEs' valuable time in closing. So what we do is we'd set up just a 15-minute call. It might be annoying for the prospect, but it is truly the benefit for the prospect, because what if it's not a good fit? They waste 30 minutes, they find it, and what the hell? So what we'd do is we'd ask just basic qualification questions. Then once we got those, we'd pass them along. We'd set up a 15-minute call. Then once we're done with the 15-minute call, if it makes sense on both ends, we'd pass them along to an AE. Then they'd run a discovery call. Then if it made sense for a further one, they'd run an hour-long demo call. That's the typical process in that regard. So I'll stop there if you have any questions, because I know I started on the first part.
No, it's a crazy process. Probably not the most ideal buyer experience to be passed along 3 times before you actually get to see the demo.
No, it's literally not. It was very annoying for prospects. And I think a lot of the times where they would ghost was at that point after the qualification call that the SDR would run, is because, listen, man, whenever you get a junior SDR in that doing that, and the buyer already knows pretty much, let's say even 50% of what you do or the area that you do, and you're just trying to get basic information when these people have clearly shown interest and are already on your site wanting to take a demo, I just, that whole process to me just never made sense, truthfully. I hated it. I just genuinely just disliked it. But yeah, crazy process. It's not a good time on the buyer side either. And honestly, I think it just makes the buyer cycle just elongated in my eyes.
Yeah, you could potentially lose deals. They were qualified in market to buy. All of a sudden, they got turned away because the SDR who was servicing you didn't really know the answers to the questions, and you had to wait 2 weeks to speak to an AE.
Exactly. And is that on the SDR? No. Is it on the leadership? Is it on the way that they're doing go-to-market, or did go-to-market in the past? Keep in mind, all this is past stuff. I do not work at Demandbase anymore. They could have updated all this. But yeah, man, I mean, that whole buyer disconnect, it starts there. And that's where you don't want it to start. You want the buyer disconnect to happen whenever they think that it's not a product for them. I know that sounds really weird, but that's what I think in my eyes. But yeah.
So let's talk about some of the things that did work. Maybe, you mentioned before that there was a process where you pulled acceleration pipeline reports, and yeah, let's talk about that.
Yeah, so whenever I got moved into, I'll start at the growth segment. So one thing that we would do really well with cross-sell upsells. So let's say we had the account-based marketing, they were focused on marketing personas. Okay, they already owned us. Let's say back in the day, I had 4 or 5 AEs that I was working with on the growth side. They each had a book of business of about like 35 to 50 accounts. They were all active. They're all demand-based customers. The majority of them, I'd say a good 90% of them, owned the account-based marketing platform or the advertising platform, which is the marketing personas. So what I did, this is what I found great success in terms of upsells and signal-based selling, is we drink from our own champagne. A lot of you guys might not know this. Demandbase, basically, they de-anonymize website traffic, basically making it easier for you to go to market. What we would do in the growth side is I would take the target account lists of all the accounts that I was allowed to work, because there was very, very, it's very niche in terms of who you could target within current customer bases. So I'd take, let's say, 50 accounts that owned the ABM ads platform, marketing personas done. What I do is I take those 50, add them into a spreadsheet. I then go prospect 5, 10 people at those accounts within the sales function to upsell them on a sales intelligence cloud solution, which is basically just data, competitor to Zoom info, stuff like that. What I do then is, based on the signals inside of Demandbase, I would go into the account, let's say XYZ account. I'd go into that account. They own ABM ads, whatever. They don't have SIC or data. So I immediately go in there, pull an intent report showing for sales intelligence cloud or related solutions or keywords that are related to me. We had keyword sets that we would do. So you just click a little button and you'd say sales intelligence cloud keyword set at this account level. Then what we would do is we would see, okay, perfect. Hopefully they would have a trending intent or some kind of intent, right? Let's assume for the ease of this, they have some active intent around sales intelligence tools and clean data. What we do is we'd screenshot that graph and screenshot where the spike is. And then we would write an email to the sales leaders that would be interested in the sales intelligence platform. We'd write that, what we'd call those are pipeline acceleration reports. And then we'd send that out to them and say, hey, listen, I see that this is obviously some area of interest right now for your guys' company. I'm already working with XYZ on your marketing team. Figured this would be a relevant time to connect further on sales intelligence data, blah, 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 value prop, CTA, send it over. that is something that for cross-selling and upselling and intent-based, like signal-based selling is a game changer. That is something that truly did work. I think I was booking upwards of 14 meetings. I think that was the most I booked in a month. The quota there was around like 4 or 6, and then they changed it up to 12 after we started smashing it with that kind of take, if you will. That's another way. So there's a third way. I know we've talked about 2 ways so far. There's a third way that I did in the net new enterprise side. So if we want to talk about that, we could go down that route too. All right, man. All right, cool. So basically what it was in the net new side. So net new, obviously a different beast, very cold outbound, even with signal-based signals or selling anything like that, making it a little bit warmer. We all know in the back of our heads, it's still cold outreach. That's just how I've always viewed it. Could be wrong. That's just how I view it personally. So what we do there is I would have a list of my AE, specifically in the growths. I had 2. I'll break it down with 1. So let's say I had 1 AE in net new enterprise. He has, let's say, 5,000 accounts overall for the entire year. They do account planning the year before. He has 5,000 accounts. He then goes and finds 50 accounts that are his top 50 AE accounts. He throws those aside. I do not work those at all unless he wants me to help tag team, whatever. Then the rest of that account list, I have greenfield on. So what I do and how I prioritize all my outreach whenever I got a patch or started in that role is I would start building these pipeline acceleration reports at the net new level. So what I mean by that is, let's say I go in there, into the Demandbase platform, drinking their own champagne again. I'd go in there, load up Nicholas's accounts, my account executive's accounts, his full 5,000 list, excluding the AE top 50. Then they're already tiered out through tiers. I think it was 1 through 4. I think it was what the tiers were there. Tier 1 is the top 50. Tier 2 is top 100. Tier 3 was top 250, I believe, and then so on. So what I do is I'd go into more of the top of funnel leads first. I know that's a backward strategy, but bear with me. What I'd do is I'd go in there, find the top level funnel accounts that were showing interest in account-based marketing. That was the first product that I would go after. Then I would work it through the funnel. I'd score them my own in a spreadsheet. Then what I would do is I would go and make the actual reports. So before I would do outreach to any of these accounts, I think it was like every Monday I would run like 10 pipeline acceleration reports essentially. It took a little bit of time to do for them. That's why I could only do 10 a week. But essentially what I would do is I'd go into the account, I'd find out based on their website, based on LinkedIn, based on everything that I can do research-wise that we all have access to, I'd find 15 to 20 keywords that related to their products and services and even their competitors. So if it was Salesforce, I'd put HubSpot, CRM, customer relationship management. I'd just blast all those out. I'd build that report. It takes about a day to populate for each one. Build that report out. For tracking purposes, I would leave it on a spreadsheet. And then whenever I'm doing cold calling, I'll just do a live little cold call real quick. Hey, Alan, this is Austin over here at Demandbase. I actually had a pretty good reason to give you a quick call. You got a second? Boom, you got a second. We talk. Yeah, so basically, Demandbase, we de-anonymize website traffic. I'm just genuinely curious, is that something on the roadmap for you or something that you're trying to look at? Blah, 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 value prop. Go into it, have a pitch. The CTA on a cold call or even in emails, this is how I booked a lot of revenue in terms of net new, is perfect. Since you obviously already see value in all of this, Alan, how about I do this? I'd like to we drink from our own champagne, truly. So what I'd like to do is I'd like to, number 1, set you up on a call with my director, account executive director call. And then number 2 is ahead of that call, I'd like to take just like 15 keywords, 20 keywords from you right now, run a pipeline acceleration report to show you the top 25 accounts that are actually already doing research that you're not even aware of on and off your site based on your solutions and keywords that you gave me, as well as a sneak peek at the contacts being de-anonymized at that level as well. Do you think that would be worth something to discuss further on a call? Boom. They are immediately going to say yes, because the amount of value that they're getting there is you're not asking just for their time for free. You're giving them something that's tangible. They can take those 25 accounts, bring them back to their sales team and be like, hey guys, we should be hitting these. Why are we not? The amount of times that I'd book someone off that on a cold call, I'd send them over the list after the fact, and then we would go over it on a call with my director, and then to be like, oh man, that was a great call out. I didn't even know that they were looking us up, and that's actually a really good account for us. We had our sales team reach out to them last week. We started getting some traction. Like stuff like that is what makes signal-based selling work, especially from a net new perspective. That is a roundabout way on the three kind of pieces that I use for success at Demandbase specifically.
It's powerful. And you also mentioned one more aspect of it, which is multi-threading. So you're trying to penetrate larger enterprise accounts. So tell me a little bit more about how you do that.
Yeah, so multi-threading in the net new enterprise space. So if I booked a call, let's try and give you an example. Obviously, this is like months back that I did all this. I'll try and give you an example. Let's say I booked a meeting with XYZ company. Great call. Got the marketing team involved, account-based marketing, advertising. They're super involved with it. Built them out a pipeline acceleration report. We got them on a discovery with my AE, moved to demo stage. They're wanting to procure the product. We're doing a proof of concept, whatever. What I do then is once we're at a proof of concept stage, the best part to do as an SDR, at least from the SDR perspective, is go ahead and build out another pipeline acceleration report, just like I was doing with the cross-sell upsells. Build out another one, relate it back to their products and everything like that, but then relate it back to Sales Intelligence Cloud, stuff like that. Then go do that same outreach to their marketing counterparts, or not marketing counterparts, their sales counterparts. Mention their names, name drop them, send a screenshot of the previous pipeline acceleration report, send a screenshot of what exactly they said that they found useful of it, send a screenshot and just articulate why it is you're reaching out. I almost always treated the multi-threading portion, once it got to that stage, I almost treated it as they're already a client. I'm just doing a cross-sell, upsell, just like I was doing in the growth. That's the mindset that I would have whenever I would do the outreach back to them using the PARs.
Then you feel like a friend. It doesn't feel cold at all.
Well, yeah, exactly. At that point, it's definitely just more warm. It's more inviting. Listen, if you have at any point an in to tell them, not lying, don't lie to your prospects. If you have a genuine in and you can tell your prospects like, hey, I'm already working with XYZ in your marketing team. They're very interested. You guys are about to procure a product anyways. I just wanted to see if you were interested in this because I'm already seeing a lot of interest based on the pipeline acceleration report. I'm already seeing screenshot interest coming from you guys onto our Sales Intelligence Cloud as well. Just wanted to throw that out there. Do you think it would be relevant timing for us to hop on a call with my director? Boom. And then you start multi-threading everyone in. Then once it gets all wrapped up, I think we did this with, I'll say it, Broadcom. I think we brought in Broadcom at 300 plus 500,000 2 years ago at Forrester, I think is whenever I sourced that. And that was a similar situation where you did a lot of multi-threading within their different business units. And it really made it cohesive, or cohesive is the word I'm looking for.
And then what happens next? So as an SDR, you're helping multi-thread. The AE's trying to manage all the relationships. What else?
That's a tough question. You're probably not like my answer. As the SDR and our job functions, once you get to that point, you pass it along, man. Once you've gotten the meeting set, you've done the follow-up, that's one thing that you need to do. Assuming that you're doing all the follow-up and you're following the entire deal cycle, which I think that every SDR should be doing. Let's say that there's a lag or a time where they ghost someone like we've all experienced. That's when I would go rerun another pipeline acceleration report, re-show my value, but show it for a different business unit at that company, especially at the enterprise level. A lot of those companies have different business units. If one business unit is slowly crumbling, go find another business unit at the multi-billion-dollar, 10,000 plus employee company, screenshot the intent report again, use the same messaging, say, hey, I already talked with XYZ in your different business unit. He was very interested. Call it out. I think a lot of the time SDRs are very afraid to just speak directly in a professional way. But that is something that I would find whenever it would happen to me. If we got ghosted, I would immediately start following up within different business units at that account, because at that account level, there's some sort of interest. Like you shouldn't just drop it if one person's like ghost you and doesn't respond, especially if it's a large enterprise account. But genuinely, if everything is going well, no one's ghosted you or anything like that, after you've done everything that you can in terms of the pipeline acceleration reports, you've made it all tracked, like you have it all logged in your CRM, the SDR shouldn't be doing anything else. It should all be the AE. The SDR's got other things to do. We have other people to go book. We have other pipeline acceleration reports to book or to make and everything like that. We don't have the time to make sure that we're on top of it. It's the AE. That's the responsibility of the AE at that point, in my opinion.
Got it. Coming back into the signals, what signals have you seen be successful during outreach?
Yeah, so one of the main signals that I would find specifically was competitors. So whenever you're doing, I know we talked about this previously, but whenever you're doing an intent research report, like we've been talking about previously, if they're just showing intent for, let's say, Demandbase, we'll just use Demandbase as an example here. If they're just showing interest in an account-based marketing platform in general, or just account-based marketing or go-to-market platforms or go-to-market strategies, that is such a broad, in my opinion, that's just such a broad topic nowadays. Obviously, this was like 8 months ago, could be different, whatever, right now. That is just a very broad topic in my opinion. So that's not going to be a relevant trigger for me. I'm not going to go write a whole report and say, hey, I saw you doing research on just account-based marketing. I would hope that they're doing research, or if I'm reaching out to someone that's showing intent, I would hope they're doing research as in, hey, they're researching 6 Sense, or they're researching Rollworks, or they're researching like XYZ, or they're researching de-anonymizing web traffic specifically. Stuff like that. That is anything that you can tie back directly to a USP or unique selling proposition. That is what an intent is. That is what a signal is. Anything that you cannot tie back to that, it's not a fucking signal. Excuse my language. I cuss like a sailor sometimes. Sorry. That's not a signal in my opinion. It just genuinely is not. In my opinion, it's not. That is what I would say is the relevant triggers. Relating back to Demandbase, obviously each one relevant, it's hyper relevant to your specific product, your solution, who you sell into, stuff like that. So this is just an example. But what I would always go after in terms of triggers at Demandbase was if they're researching something that ties directly back to our USP, directly, not high level, and if they're researching any of our competitors. Because what that tells me as an SDR or seller or anyone using the platform that's pulling that intent, tells me that they know something about what it is that we do. So they're already higher level intelligent than they would be if they're just doing broad research on ABM. That's what I would consider not necessarily golden triggers, but your silver triggers, if you will.
If only gold, silver bullet, gold triggers existed.
Yeah, exactly. I don't think there truly is unless a demo request is a gold trigger.
Even right? Then, it might not be from a qualified lead. So.
Exactly. So that's the real question: is how do we get to finding all the qualified opportunities without doing everything that we've talked about at scale? But
yeah, intent plus qualification. These two: intent, fit, qualification. What can be improved upon signal-based selling that you can do today that you couldn't do when you were at Demandbase?
Okay. What could be improved right now? So I think that one of the biggest disconnects is obviously these people know that you're going to reach out to them. I think that this signal-based selling in general is becoming, I don't want to use the word saturated because that's wrong. That's not the right word for it. But it is almost becoming like a saturated state because here's the thing. If you're a buyer in today's state and a B2B technology company, or you're looking for B2B tech, that you typically do know if you've been in the space that they have all the relevant tools. They see that you're doing this research. They see that you're doing some top level research. So they know in the back of their head, most likely they're going to get reached out to. Okay. So the question is, how do we reach out to them and make it less friction, or make it less friction in terms of the outreach to them whenever you're doing it and you're saying it and making it less creepy. So I think one thing that's improved now is a lot of the time whenever we would do the outreach at first, because whenever we were coming up with this strategy at Demandbase, it was almost like creepy. Oh, hey, I see you're on my website. Here's a screenshot of exactly what you're doing. It's almost creepy, but the finesse to it is where it comes in, and that's what's been evolving, in my opinion, to answer your question, is just learning how to finesse the intent to make it to where the prospect doesn't find you creepy. Because here's the thing. You walk up to a girl in the bar and you're like, hey, I saw you were researching 25-year-old tech gurus on Instagram last week. You want to go on a date? What do you think that woman's going to do? She's going to look at you and slap you. So it's the same thing with the prospect. So I think that's what's evolving right now is we as the sellers are realizing it's creepy, but there's a way to do it correctly. And the way to do it correctly is to meet them where they're at. How do we do that? Intent signals. How do we do that? And how do we gauge what intent signal is relevant to be reaching out to you at the right time? That comes with a lot of time, error, processes, and trial, in my opinion, which I think is what the stage is where the B2B tech world is in terms of signal-based selling. That's where we're at right now. We're in a stage where we're trying to figure out what is creepy, what is not creepy, what's relevant, what isn't relevant in terms of doing the outreach to these people. So I think it's a great question. I don't even have a full-blown answer to you because I think it's always evolving right now. I think the purpose of right now signal-based selling is just trying to stay away from being creepy. And how do we do that? That's a great question. I don't have the answer to that. Do you?
Oh, it's tough. Each industry is different. If they're security or financials, especially security related, then they don't really want to be reaching out because that's a violation of security. And then you don't want to be the type of person that has all the PI information and then emails them and wait. Yeah. So it all depends.
Yeah. So I know that's not the answer you're really looking for, but that's what I would say right now. We're just in a space where we're trying to figure that out. I think that's exactly where we're at. And I think if you were to ask me that question in 6 months, I'd be able to give you a really solid answer on that, because I think that tools like Warmly are coming up with different ways to do exactly that, making it less creepy, making it more humanistic. Because that's something that I think that's actually a better answer for you. Is I think that signal-based selling is going to be moving towards more of a humanistic level of selling, as opposed to, hey, I saw you were on XYZ, please take meeting with me now. No, we're going to find ways to make it super, super relevant based on the triggers that we're getting. The part that I just really don't know is how deep are we going to be able to get in terms of signals? Like, how deep are we really going to be able to get? And at what point is it going to get to the point where it's like, all right, like, what does a buyer need to research now? I don't know. It's all very weird. It's all very fast changing is what I would say.
Yeah. The market's fast changing these days. So anyone's guess what's going to happen in 2 years from now. But Austin, it's fantastic having you on this pod today. Really appreciate your time. How can people find out more about you?
Well, you can go on my LinkedIn, and then have a newsletter, DNA prospecting. But yeah, LinkedIn is the best way to connect with me. Austin Jouett, just as you guys see it on the screen. But yeah, that is pretty much the best way to reach me.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Austin.
Yeah, absolutely. I appreciate you for having me on, and looking forward to another episode.
100%. Let's do it.